The following podcast is brought to you by Pro Wrestling Connect, Australia's newest choice for event management and brand development specializing in pro wrestling.
And now, the B Plus Wrestling Podcast. Watch global. Support local. It's the B Plus Wrestling Podcast.
The moves.
B plus.
Alright, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, welcome to another B Plus podcast. I'm your host, Greg Unchained. Today is Friday. You know what that means. It's Aussie Grapps Day. It's our favourite day here at the B Plus. Today we sit down and talk about all things Australian professional wrestling. I pull out some of the top headlines that have crossed through my desk before also sitting down to speak with an Aussie Grappler or Grappler adjacent person. This week, I actually spoke with a Kiwi Grappler, well, an Englishman who grapples in New Zealand. I don't know. It's still an Aussie Grapps show. Deal with it. Marcus Kool, the New Zealand heavyweight champion for SPW, joins me ahead of his big match against Slex. We talk about the match, obviously. We talk about all things Marcus Kool, his whole career coming through England down to New Zealand, starting SPW. We talk a lot about SPW. It's a really great chat. But before we get to that, let's take a look at this week in Aussie Grapps news. As we do, we like to pull out some of the top headlines. We like to keep it nice and short. We know that you're mostly here for the interview, but we want to hit you with some of the things that are happening this week that you may have missed. First ticket item has to be PWG Battle of Los Angeles, September 19, 20, and 22. It's a weird one. They don't have a Saturday show. I know that the place they were in was obviously booked. So 19, 20, and 22, it's on a Thursday, Friday, and a Sunday this year. Not that it matters unless you're in America, because you got to wait for the DVDs like the rest of us schmucks over here in Australia. But if you're going over, of course, those are the dates you want to look at. And we have some Aussies being announced for Battle of Los Angeles. Now, last year, of course, we had Robbie Eagles, Adam Brooks, and Jonah Rock. They became known as the G3. I always called them the PWG3. They shortened it. I don't know, something to do with a guitarist. There's a reference. I have no idea. But we have our G3 already. And now it looks like we may be on the road to getting another G3, because Mick Moretti and Caveman Ugg have both been entered into the Battle of Los Angeles. So Mick Moretti was the 5th entrant. Caveman Ugg was the 8th entrant, announced today. This is very exciting. It's great for these guys. It's great for the Aussie wrestling scene. We already know how much Adam Brooks, Jonah Rock, and Robbie Eagles being a part of PWG has increased their profile, brought more eyes over to our product. We have hardcore PWG fans who look in on PWA shows and MCW shows and the like because of these names that were introduced to them at PWG. So this is huge for Mick Moretti. This is huge for Caveman Ugg. Mick Moretti has flown to, I believe, the last 2 bowlers to just be around, to do the ring crew. He's flown himself there. You know, that's initiative, man. That's what you got to do. If you want to get noticed, you need that. And he talks about, right, you're going to notice us. Now we conquer. That's the man right there, Mick Moretti. He flew himself over to do part of ring crew. I know Jessica Troy did it as well. It's amazing that they're finally recognizing and giving him that spot in the actual tournament, because he is one of the best wrestlers in the world. So these guys are going to be facing off against the likes of A-Kid, Jonathan Gresham, Artemis Spencer, Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and Bandito. Those are the other names announced so far. And of course, there will be more names to come. We're hoping for another Australian, if we can get to 3 again, so we can have a G3 part 2. That's what we want. Let me know who you would like it to be. Hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram. You know, who would you like to be the 3rd Australian entrant into the PWG Battle of Los Angeles? Should it be Jack Bonza? Should it be Paris De Silva? Would love to see Paris De Silva in PWG. Should it be Slex? Slex is a big name that a lot of people would love to see fly over for the Battle of Los Angeles. I want to know who you think would make a great 3rd addition to this PWG 3 Part 2. I want to know. So hit me up. I'll probably do a poll thing on Instagram. I'm still getting around the social media. You guys know this. Other news, Melbourne City Wrestling have announced a big double header the week before the PWA Coliseum. So PWA Coliseum takes place October 18th and 19th up in Sydney. The week before that, October 11th and 12th, MCW are having a doubleheader. This leads me to believe that perhaps there will be talent coming. We know Orange Cassidy is coming for PWA's Coliseum. Perhaps he will be gracing Melbourne first. Perhaps he will be a part of that show. Maybe there are other internationals planning to be here for Coliseum, whether for the tournament or just for the show, and they're going to Melbourne City as well first, because we do know that on weekends like this, PWA and MCW do like to share talent. We had Session Moth Martina and Millie McKenzie, of course. Jimmy Havoc before that was down in January, and he did Melbourne one weekend and Sydney the next weekend. It's entirely likely that that's what this is all about, that there's a doubleheader in Melbourne, a doubleheader in Sydney, that we're going to get a massive weekend of wrestling, a massive 2 weekends of wrestling. I've already got my flights to Sydney for the 18th and 19th for Coliseum. I'm going to have to find a way to get to Melbourne to do a doubleheader there as well, depending on what these shows turn out to be, because it looks like it could be a huge month of wrestling in October, a huge month of traveling for the B Plus team to get to all these incredible shows. Speaking of PWA Coliseum, a man behind that, of course, Jack Bonza, one of the men behind that PWA, Jack Bonza. He was down here last week at Riot City Wrestling, and he seems to have laid out a challenge to Gods and Monsters, who just won the tag team titles. So Gods and Monsters, that is Big Brody Marshall and the Viking Grim, they defeated the Parea in the main event and took the gold, took the tag team titles away from the plucky underdog baby faces that are the Parea, the crowd favorites that everyone loves to see them get up there and muzz out. And they lost the titles. Money's in the chase, I suppose. I would have kept the titles on them for a while. I love the Parea. The Parea are amazing, but maybe that's the point. Maybe they want me to be wanting, right? So either way, Gods and Monsters, new tag team champions. Jack Bonza appeared to lay out some kind of a challenge. Does this mean that Jack Bonza and Mick Moretti will be coming down? Perhaps Jack Bonza and Adam Hoffman. Some formation of the nations formation of the nations. I like that. Some formation of the nations coming down to Adelaide. I hope so. I will be there with bells on. It's going to be an amazing show. I didn't get to this last one, Long Live the King, just for personal reasons, but hopefully that doesn't happen next time, and I can see the Nations versus Gods and Monsters, because that would be an amazing match. Speaking of Jack Bonza, though, what I actually wanted to say, the story that I actually have in front of me, that was just a tangent. None of that was scripted. None of this is scripted. I have dot points. Jack Bonza and Concrete Davidson are going to be hosting a radio show this weekend on Coast FM 96.3. So this Sunday, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Coast FM 96.3. Jack Bonza and Concrete Davidson are live in the studio for Wrestling Source Radio. Now, Jack Bonza tweeted out something to the effect of he's going to get his own radio show, and he's going to call it How to Apply a Waist Lock and why it's important. I can't remember, but it was an 11-part series about a waist lock. An 11-part series about a waist lock. And you know what? With the way Jack Bonza talks about wrestling, like he is Australia's Mike Quackenbush. Just about, like, I could listen to this man talk about wrestling forever. I am here for this. I am looking forward to hopefully finding a way to listen to Coast FM 96.3 this Sunday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Something else I'm looking forward to is coming sometime in July. Anna Bowett of EPW and MCW fame, the interviewer in both of those companies, is launching a channel in July, complete with interviews and feature profiles and things like this. Also, a documentary on Brigitte. The evil, dastardly, communist Russian. Oh man, from Wrestle Rock, Brigitte. You guys know Brigitte. She took a staple to the cooch. Man, I'm looking forward to this. Anna Bauer is highly entertaining in everything she does, and Brigitte. I really want this documentary, man. I want this documentary now. I don't want to wait. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I do not want to wait. I'm very much looking forward to this. So head out over to Anna Bowett's socials to find out more information about this channel as it becomes available. And also, finally, last thing I want to talk about, I'll get to the interview. But before I do, we have a date for Survivor. Of course, our very own Maddie Wahlberg is starring on this season of Australian Survivor, Champions vs. Contenders. He is one of the contenders. He's had some amazing spots in the promo videos. I'm really looking forward to this show. I'm not really a Survivor watcher. I haven't watched it since I was a child, but I am here for this season. It starts this Wednesday coming, July 24th, so a couple of Wednesdays away, but Wednesday, July 24th, 7:30 on Channel 10. Australian Survivor, Champions vs. Contenders. Maddie Wahlberg is on it. We need to watch it. We need to support him. Get around it, guys. Maddie Wahlberg's amazing, and I think he has real chance to go all the way. I'm looking forward to seeing how well he does. But that does it for this week in Aussie Grapps news. As always, I'm sure there's other things to talk about, but there's only so many hours in the day, and we need to listen to Marcus Kool talking about all things SPW, his career. Let's have a listen.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This month, we are sponsored by Grappler, a fantastic new wrestling app available on iOS and Google Play, completely for free, where you can rate all the matches that you watch in WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all across the world, and we are even getting Australian wrestling involved in the Grapple app rating system as well, starting with PWA Pro Wrestling Australia. Their Green Label event from the other week is up there. The Black Label event, All Eyes on Troy, is up there. And the last 2 years of events, at least, are up on Grapple right now for you to rate so that people can get around our Aussie wrestling and see that we are just as good as anywhere else in the world. Basically, Grapple is a Rotten Tomatoes for wrestling. Now we all get a say. It is the democratization of match rating systems for pro wrestling. It's amazing. So I get a say, you get a say. You can follow me on there at Greg Unchained. You can follow Big Boy Mikey at B+_Big Boy, at Mr. Mysterious is on there, at Danders is on there, at Jay is on there. We're all on there rating the matches that we watch. So follow us, we'll follow you back. Let's build this community and get as many Australian wrestling fans onto the Grapple app as we can. You can download it right now. It has over 30,000 matches on there going back to 1985, 15 promotions around the world. There's so much to do on the Grapple app. It's a great little community, so get around it. It's Grapple, GRAPPL.co, and it's for free on App Store and Google Play. Get around it. Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, OUTBREAK Nutrition. OUTBREAK Nutrition are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at OUTBREAK Nutrition. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out OUTBREAKNutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, OUTBREAKNutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout. Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B+ podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Grapps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today. Alright, joining me now by the magic of the internet, provided my dodgy Australian internet connection decides to hold up for the entire time, all the way from New Zealand. He is the New Zealand heavyweight champion, the hooligan, Marcus Kool. How are you, brother?
Greg, I'm good, mate. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm feeling a bit under the weather. The kids have gotten me sick, but, you know, I'm doing well.
We were just discussing this before we came on air. I'm currently sitting here with Lemsip, and I've spent like $60 on medicine earlier because I've got this show on Saturday, and the flu has hit me. The kids have destroyed me, and now the hooligan's sitting with a blanket over him with TK Cooper babysitting, sitting on Lemsip on a podcast. That's my current situation. That's amazing. See, I was going to say, you don't want to reveal this stuff on air because Slex could be listening and it could give him an advantage, but then I realized he's just become a parent himself. So yeah, and he's earlier than me as well. Like, he's in the early stage, so he's fucked. I'm going to totally take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to dive like all the way back to the beginning and get like the whole Marcus Kool story. So I think the best place to start in general with these, first time chatting and everything, is what attracted you to wrestling? What's like your first memory of pro wrestling?
I love sport and I love entertainment, so it kind of meshed really well for me. But my first memory of wrestling was Bret the Hitman Hart. I don't know what drew me into him, but I was just obsessed with him as a little kid. And then the whole Bret Hart, Steve Austin storyline happened, and Austin just, he just rocketed to the top, and he was my man.
Right.
Like, I probably wouldn't have stuck with it if it wasn't for Steve Austin, but I was just blown away by him. I was a teenager, I was going through that stage, and I was just all about Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was my boy.
Yeah. I think we all were, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he became a cultural phenomenon. So,
yeah, definitely, man. But yeah, I still think to this day Steve Austin's untouchable.
Yeah.
I just every time I watch him, I'm just like, you are just another level.
Right. So it sounds like you rode the roller coaster they wanted you to ride, right? Like you were when Bret Hart was, excellence of execution, all that sort of stuff, and you were on board, and then they did the double turn, yeah, and then you were.
Oh, mate, I was so in. Yeah. I was so in. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had me hook, line, and sinker. I was, yeah.
So when they did it later, when The Rock became the guy, did you follow that train too, or were you just still like, nah, Steve Austin's my dude?
I was still all about Steve Austin, eh?
Yeah.
Even back then, as a teenager, I kind of got why everyone was liking The Rock, but for me, it was always Steve Austin.
Yeah. Well, the Rock's a great entertainer, but like in terms of like, if you want to evaluate them on their wrestling ability, right? Like Stone Cold's far and above the better wrestler.
I think so, man. Yeah.
I'd say so. And I'm an authority on this kind of thing.
But I think they just gelled so well together.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They were just, complete opposites. And Austin was... What draws me to Austin is just he's so intense. Like his intensity is just through the roof. And like everything he does is believable. I think that's what always drew me to Austin. He's just so believable in everything that he did.
Yeah, I can see that coming through in your work as well, and the bald head too. I guess is another.
That wasn't by choice. That wasn't by choice.
Yeah, no, I saw a photo of you in my brief research that I did before we did the interview. I did see a photo of you with hair, and it was shocking.
It was pathetic, wasn't it? I clung on to it for so long. The wife was like, just get rid of it. You look ridiculous.
Amazing.
It was a sad day.
Amazing. When did you decide though? So you're a big fan from like all through your teenage years and stuff. When did you decide to, look into it, go out and learn how to throw yourself at the ground, for a living?
Yeah. I suppose like most wrestlers in England back then, I started like real young. So I started when I was about 14 years old. And I went to a wrestling school in Birmingham, England, and it was the same wrestling school that Drake Maverick went to.
Right.
Dave Mastiff is on NXT UK now, and there's a few others. Ashton Smith, he's NXT UK now. I'm trying to think of names that people would know.
Yeah, well, I saw you on Drake Maverick's Instagram at the wedding stuff, right?
Yeah,
that was insane. Just seeing that pop up, I'm like, what the hell is the hooligan doing there? And I was like, right, England. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. So yeah, I luckily for some reason, well, it still is. The Birmingham wrestling scene was just always buzzing, and there's always something happening there. And there was a guy at my school, and his big brother did it. So I just bothered him until he eventually introduced me to his big brother, and he took me along to this seminar. And it was probably one of the best schools back in the day. So I got really lucky. It was run by a guy called Steve Logan, who's a World of Sport wrestler.
Right.
He didn't have too much to do with the wrestling side of things, but he had trained enough people that kind of knew what they were doing and could teach the basics. And then Steve would pop in every now and then, and he would pick his favorites. Luckily, I was one of them, and just spend a bit of time with them. So, relative to back then, I actually had some pretty good training. And as I say, I started young. So by the time I debuted when I was like 17, I was already fairly, decent rather than, a few months in.
Yeah. And this is, well, because, you hear that a lot here, especially like down here in Australia, and I assume in New Zealand as well, but people having their first matches after like a couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, you got to imagine those first matches for some people are going to be pretty rough, and they're going to look back on them and cringe a little.
Oh, mate, totally. It blows my mind how, and like, hats off to them. Like, a few months and they're in the ring. Like, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. So
yeah.
It's a different time.
Well, the only way it becomes a problem to me as a fan watching it and sort of seeing the things I see is if they then think they don't have to train anymore because they're like, oh, I'm booked on the weekend. I don't have to train.
Mate, that pisses me off.
Yeah.
And,
let Wild Man go for it.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go for it.
Mate, it's one of our biggest peeves. You know, like I always try and compare it to a real sport as well when you come to training. So although it's sports entertainment, it's an athletic, skill and something that you really need to put time and effort into. And I've played football all my life. I'll never stop going to football training. You know,
yeah,
I'll never stop trying to learn or get better at football. And the same applies even more so in wrestling because there's so many different elements of it that you need to get better at, not just in the ring, but your character, your promo work, and your attitude and your etiquette and everything that comes with it. And I genuinely don't think that people train enough these days. I think it's severely lacking. I still train. Like, whenever I can get in the ring, I'll get in there. We had a Travis Banks seminar the other day. Granted, I only did about half of it because then I had to jump out and do social media stuff and everything else I'm doing with SBW. But, if I get the chance and Travis is there, I've been wrestling longer than him, but he's definitely learned a lot more than I've learned because for where he's been. So I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Adam Hoffman last week and he said that, he runs the school there in Newcastle, the House of Free Fighting, but he said when Mike Quackenbush came down, it was great because he got to take the week off of training and he gets to learn again. Like, if you're not learning, you're dying. It's something we said last week.
That's bang on, man. And I love it. Like, I love training. I love getting in there and learning new things and just training. But I suppose people are different, but it's always bothered me that people will just sit out of stuff or just think they're too good or they're not going to learn something because you'll learn something from anybody. I could learn something from somebody that's been doing it a week that I probably have never heard of.
Right.
It's, you can always learn.
Absolutely. It's like, for me, the only real sport that I follow is NFL, but it's like Tom Brady doesn't skip camp.
No, it doesn't.
and he's Tom fucking Brady. If Tom Brady doesn't skip camp, what the fuck are you doing skipping anything?
Exactly. Yeah, we'll end it there.
Yeah. But so walk us through the career in Brit Rest. So when did you? What year was it that you had your first match? So you were 17. I'm going to age you here.
Oh fuck! I think it was. I've got it on a VHS in my garage. I think it was 2003 or 2004. I will find out for you. I'll send a photo of this VHS tape.
So is this around the FWA era? Like, because I was like following the magazines and stuff, and I remember FWA was big.
Yeah, geez, man. Yeah, it was. I only worked FWA a couple of times.
Okay.
And then I left. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Do you remember 1PW?
Okay, yeah, heard of it. Yep.
Yes. So I suppose I wrestled for them a couple of times as well. But I was mainly based in the Midlands. I was mainly based out of Birmingham. I used to do like the summer camps as well. Johnny Kidd was actually my first promoter that took me around the camps, which was pretty crazy because back then, I was like a 16-year-old kid and I had no idea what World of Sport Wrestling was.
Right.
So to then be doing a camp with Johnny Kidd and learning everything that he knew at that age was pretty crazy. Yeah. Looking back on it now. So yeah, man, I did a heap, but back then it just wasn't as popular as it is now. I suppose now you've got Progress that are doing crowds of 700 to 800 people every month. Whereas back then we were lucky to get a crowd of, 200.
Right.
That was considered, a good house. So it's definitely evolved and changed for the better, which is awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of like the philosophy of, like from what I could tell, other than probably like your FWA and stuff, a lot of the promotions around there were just, they'd bring in the International of the Month kind of thing. Ex-WWE guys coming in to sort of face off against the local talent. Is that what there was a lot of? And then when it switched, that's when Brit Res started to really take off.
Yes. Yeah, man, pretty much. And that is what they were doing wrong, is they weren't featuring the Brits guys as the stars.
Yeah.
Which was silly back then because they were better sometimes. Like the US guys that were coming over were actually coming over to learn from the Brits. So it was so backwards.
Yeah.
So it's good that they're finally getting it right.
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch on that a little bit more, but first I have a note here from a website that I randomly came across. You apparently are a good breakdancer. Is this something that's...
I mean, I would say I'm average, especially now. It was something that I dabbled in back in the day.
Okay, and did you incorporate that into your character? Because I don't know why this came up in one of your wrestling profiles, but there it was. Really good breakdancer. I'm like, okay, cool. I gotta ask him about the breakdancing then.
That's kind of why I'm called. So I hate my name, Marcus Kool. I hate it.
Okay,
but that's kind of why I'm called Marcus Kool, was because I used to do a breakdancer character. That was my break-in.
Please tell me you came out to like B-Boys Fly Girls or something.
I'm pretty sure I came out to Backstreet Boys at one point. Bumfunk MCs, Freestyler.
Yes.
All the cheese.
So good.
I used to do, the Spinneroonie and every cliche you could think of. That was me. I think my finisher was the worm.
Nice. Nice. A little bit of Scotty Too Hottie.
A little bit of Scotty Too Hottie. To the point where they actually brought Scotty Too Hottie over for a tour after he'd left the WWE, and they put me with Scotty Too Hottie for like, I think 3 shows I ended up doing with Scotty Too Hottie.
Nice. Did you guys do a double worm? You had to.
We did a double worm.
Yes. I am here for this.
Yeah. But I didn't, again, I was like only like 18 then, so I didn't really appreciate how great that was. But,
yeah.
That's fun times.
That's pretty much. Do you have that one on VHS? I want to see that one. Get that one up on YouTube, man.
I'm pretty sure if you search Marcus Kool, Scotty Too Hottie, there is something on YouTube.
I am doing that the second we hang up the phone. So, when did the hooligan character come about?
So the hooligan came about when I was in New Zealand. I really felt that I needed to do something different and change it up a little bit.
Right.
But I didn't want to do the stereotypical English, I'm just English character, I wanted to go a little bit deeper than that, so I could, change it up a little bit here and there and when I needed to.
Right.
So I just looked at loads of different type of English characters that, people relate to internationally.
Yeah, like the stereotypes.
The stereotypes. And I always, obviously I'm a big football fan, and I always enjoyed like the hooligan films, so I used to watch a ton of those. So I kind of developed the character just from watching a lot of hooligan films. And my dad used to take me to the football when I was little, and you always used to sit in the stands in the crowd, and there'd just be these absolute bellends in there, just being really annoying and loud and obnoxious and thinking they're fucking great. So I was like, I could just do that. I could just be one of those people and just turn it up a notch or two.
Just a side note, you Englishmen have the best fucking insults, man. Bellend. Bellend. I heard an Englishman call someone a knobhead earlier. I was like, this is great.
I don't know where it comes from. So yeah, man, I kind of just based it on that. And then it kind of grew from there.
Okay, fair. And it allows you to tap into that sort of aggression and stuff. Like you're doing a breakdance character, you can't really tap into your Stone Cold influence there, can you?
Definitely not. No. I was, and you can't, no, you're pretty handcuffed with what you can do there.
Yeah, so I feel like it fits then. It's a good thing, and like obviously the character's doing well for you. But so that was after you'd moved to New Zealand. What was the catalyst for moving to New Zealand? And was it hard, especially watching BritRes blow up? After you'd sort of left and gone elsewhere.
Yeah, man. Yes and no. I always wanted to go traveling. And for me, I never wanted to, this might sound really weird to a lot of people, but I never wanted to do wrestling full time. I always enjoyed it as not a hobby, but just as a side passion.
Yeah.
Back then, and probably more so now. So I always wanted to go travel and do different things. And I remember I went backpacking when I was, I think it was 21 or so. And I just love doing that stuff. And I love going to new places and meeting new people. And I did like the typical backpacker route of Australia and Asia, and then I ended up in New Zealand. And mate, I just fell in love with the country here and just the people and how relaxed it was. And I just knew that I wanted to kind of make a life here, because it's not that I'm not a big fan of England. I just preferred New Zealand as like a destination for future life.
Yeah. Well, look, sometimes people vibe with different places, Like that's why I moved down to Adelaide. I'm originally from Sydney, and but I moved down here just because when we came through here one time, I was just like, man, the vibe here, like I like it, you know. And sometimes you just got to follow that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I always knew I just didn't want to live and grow up in Birmingham. And I knew that I wanted to get out of the country. And New Zealand was just ticked all the boxes. Like, it's a real big outdoor place. I'm really into outdoors and sports. The place where I live now, Queenstown, is just such a pretty, beautiful place. I'm not a big city person. I don't really like being around a lot of people. And I like the easy life, you know? So it kind of just fits me well.
Fair enough. And was it hard though? Like, you know, I know wrestling was sort of a side passion for you, but were you able to just put that in the rear view and just be like, oh, it's fine. Like, even though everything over there is going absolutely fucking crazy when it did.
Yeah, man. It was like, obviously, like, you get a hint of jealousy and stuff here and there, but to be honest, all my friends were doing really well, and that kind of made me happy. Especially to see a guy, Drake Maverick, who's like one of my best mates, and to see how successful he's been and how well he's done with the growth of that scene is just, it's so cool, you know. And he was always a person that really wanted it, and you could tell he was going to do well, you know. There was no denying that dude. And when you're not on that same wavelength, you know, you kind of just feel real happy for them.
That's good.
Yeah, but it was so cool to watch it grow and watch it spike the way it did. And I'm just glad that somebody came along and did something with the scene, because it was always there and the talent was always there. I just always felt that it wasn't really being marketed or promoted properly. And I think when Progress came along, that really, I credit Progress a lot to the changing culture over there.
Yeah, definitely. I think they definitely seem like the big change that occurred was Progress and their focus on the local stars. Like, that was the big thing to them, was the local stars. And I feel like you guys sort of mirror that in SPW.
Yeah. I've definitely tried to apply a lot of stuff that Progress did right. Because it can relate back to building the scene over here. But yeah, a focus for sure is the local guys, and they should be. They're your kind of backbone of your company.
Yeah, so we're probably going to come back to the Progress connection a lot, because a lot of my questions here are going to be asking about things that I know Progress kind of did first. And then but take us through the founding of SPW. How did you guys get together, decide, okay, we're going to put on some wrestling here on this South Island in the middle of nowhere, on the edge of the world even?
Well played. That was smooth.
Yeah. That's what I do.
So I was doing bits and bobs here in New Zealand and over in Australia, but not a lot. And there was a guy called Troy who had just been over to train with Lance Storm in Canada, and he contacted me. He found me through online, and he messaged and just said, "Hey, I'm from Invercargill, which is not far from here. Is there much wrestling down here?" And I said, "Absolutely not. Do not come back to this country if you want to be a wrestler. Go elsewhere." And he says, "Well, I have to. I've got a family I need to come back and settle." So I was like, "Right." So we kind of just stayed in touch, and we caught up a few times, but there isn't really much wrestling down here at all. I used to travel a lot to go anywhere, and I always wanted to do something, as I say, just a side passion. And it's become a little bit more than that now, but there you go.
Yeah.
So we got along really well, and we have the same kind of theories and ideas and stuff. So it kind of just grew from there, to be honest, mate. It was honestly just a lot of beers in a pub, and just throwing stuff around, and then eventually, purchasing a ring and opening a training school and just growing it from there. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it around that, but that is the backbone of it.
Yeah. So opening the training school, obviously that's going to be integral, because you're like, we need to focus on locals. So we need to get locals because there's no wrestling here. And so how many people were in the first class?
I think we had 12 in the first class. And within that 12, we had J.K. Moody, we had Hammer, and we had Willpower, from memory. I think those were the original 3.
Right.
And then not long after, we got Kane Khan. And they really became our backbone of the company. Those 4 guys, I think we just got extremely lucky that they were around and they were there on a first intake, because normally you don't get that lucky.
Yeah. I was going to say that's a good class. That's a good track record to have, like, starting out, because they're all doing incredibly well. Yeah,
man, and that's all credit to them. Like, they put in from the get go, they've been putting in the groundwork, and they're still there to this day, training and doing ring crew and doing whatever needs to be done. They're still just as driven and just as motivated, and that's why they're going to be successful.
Yeah. And when was the first show with SPW, and so tell us about the first show, and so we can set the stage for the Southern Rumble, which is coming. How many people showed up to the first show? Was it a disaster like first shows can be? How did the first show go?
So our debut show we got lucky, man. We got about 350 people in the Invercargill Workingmen's Club. And it was headlined by myself and Troy, of course.
Yeah.
But because they hadn't been wrestling in Invercargill for a little while, we got a fair bit of media coverage out of it. And my background is kind of sales and marketing, so that kind of helped with the push of the show and getting those media contacts and getting it out there. Me and Troy tend to make a cool little team. So we did well.
We should say Troy, the powerhouse, T-Rex.
Yes. So, Well, he's now the human hate machine.
The human hate machine. Right.
Yeah, we're getting rid of powerhouse T-Rex.
I apologize. Got to stay on brand, Greg. Stay on brand. Yeah. The human hate machine T-Rex.
He would be happy I've corrected it.
Yeah, so you guys, you get the marketing contacts and stuff, so you can get into the papers and what have you, and that sort of helps, because 350, like, that's a good house for a first show.
Yeah, man, we were pretty stoked with that, eh? we were happy. It was we had a few, with it being a first show, we had a few bumps and stuff along the way, but all in all, like, everything considered, successful show, I'd say. I think we did all right.
That's awesome. And so when does the on-demand service and the Chronicles and all that stuff, because your online presence is very strong for a promotion, on the edge of the world, for a promotion in the region that we're in, you have one of the strongest. I know that, like, whatever pivot share I'm on, it has stuff from you guys. Like, every single damn pivot share that I've had, Pro Wrestling Eve, the obviously Demand Progress, you got stuff on there. Like, every single one of them. IWTV, I think you guys were on there for a bit as well. I have no idea, but it's out there so people can find it. It's well done.
Thanks, man. We a lot of work behind the scenes goes to that, and it's just relationship building and networking. And luckily, with me being from the UK and knowing a few peeps from back in the day, that helped. But it's so important. Like, it's all very well putting on a show. And I always say this, I think putting on the first show is easy. I think anybody can put on a wrestling show, but it's the investment and everything you do with it afterwards. And can you maintain that crowd base? Can you be consistent? Because that's really telling as to whether you have a good product or not, and whether people are buying what you're selling. So that's always been really important to me, and definitely the marketing side of things. I think you've always got to look, top game, and you've always got to look as presentable as you can, because otherwise people aren't going to believe in your product. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind that. To me, the show and putting that together, it's not easy, but it's a small part in putting out what you need to. And that's not just for us, that's for every wrestler that's involved in the show. If I have a wrestler that's on my show, I want to make them look like a superstar. I want whatever content they're getting from us to help them to get work elsewhere and promote themselves. So it's all part of the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when did the Will Ospreay thing come back? Because you guys were the first sort of when he did his little tour, right? It was through you guys that he sort of got in touch with the region.
Yeah, man. We got a bit lucky there. I don't think he dates B Priestley, who's a Kiwi, and she had shown Will a little documentary that we'd put out, which was made by a guy called Tyler King, who I kind of want to mention and plug. Tyler is our video producer, and without Tyler, we'd be nothing at all, because the stuff that he does for us and his creativity is insane.
So he's behind the Chronicles and everything.
He is, man. He's our unsung hero. He's behind the Chronicles. He's behind, all the show edits. He's behind our TVNZ deal. He's the man. He Amazing. Makes us look like $1 million. So extremely lucky to have Tyler on board. But yeah, sorry. So he had made a documentary for us, and we'd put it on YouTube, and B had showed Will, and Will Will, for some reason, just dug it. He loved it. So when he was planning to come over to New Zealand and visit B, he got in touch with us and said, "Hey, I'd really like to come and help you guys out and work with you because you seem like a good bunch of dudes." So yeah, that was cool.
So he actually reached out to you guys just because obviously he's coming to the area anyway, and he's a machine and just always wants to wrestle.
yeah, he did, man. Yeah, so we were like, yeah, that would be fantastic, please.
Yes, please. Absolutely, we can do that. Just the amount that man wants to wrestle. Like, I mean, I know, like, as wrestlers, like, your wrestlers like to wrestle. That's kind of the thing that you do, right? But, like,
yeah.
I mean, just looking at his schedule, it's just absolutely insane. I don't know how any human can sustain it.
Mate, and, like, he's, other than being, in my opinion, one of the best wrestlers on the planet at the moment, he's just an awesome dude. And, like, his attitude and the way he goes out of his way to help everybody as well is just awesome. I mean, at the one show we had, he was helping put up the ring, and I was like, "Will, what are you doing, mate?" And he was just putting up the ring. I was like, "You're insane."
He's like, "That's what you do."
Yeah, exactly. And we had him over for one show at one point, which was like a fight night show that we have, and it's in front of, like, we average about 150 people, and it's like in a shed. And we did like this special night because we had Will on a Thursday night. And I remember pulling him aside. I was like, "Hey, man, it's obviously, you know, a smaller show for us. Like, he had like the Tokyo Dome the next week." And I was like, "Just chill, you know, you don't have to do what you normally do. Just take it easy. You know, I don't want you to, you know, hurt yourself or anything." And he was like, "Yeah, man, of course." And he went out there and did like 25 minutes of insanity, you know? And I'm just like, all right, you know, but that's Will. So yeah, he's an awesome dude.
Yeah. So it gets eyes on the product and everything as well, having someone like that come in, but it's something else that should hopefully get more eyes on the product, and something that I think I'm pretty sure is unprecedented in, you know, Australia, New Zealand, that sort of thing. The TVNZ thing. When you were talking about Tyler, you touched on the TVNZ thing. How did that come about? And also, because I'm in Australia, I don't get to watch it. What content is actually going on that one?
So how it came about it's an interesting story, but it's quite long-winded. So I'll try and make it real quick. We were invited to go to a conference, which was called the Sparta Conference in New Zealand. And basically any bigwig that's relevant in New Zealand television is there. And we were given an opportunity to pitch wrestling to about 300 people who were all, you know, from whatever channels in New Zealand who they represent. And we did. So we put together this 5-minute pitch about what TV series we'd like to do. And we actually pitched a behind-the-scenes documentary series, and also just, you know, bits and pieces of highlights of actual wrestling in a nutshell. And when we got there, we did like rehearsals and stuff, and we didn't realize how big of a deal this thing actually was. And we were doing rehearsals. This is going to sound really bad because I can't remember his name, but he was quite an important director from New Zealand, and he like worked on like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stuff like that.
Right.
So he was watching our rehearsal, and we did it, and we were like, "Oh God." You know, we're pitching wrestling, for God's sake. And these pictures that went before us had, like, this one girl had made like a complete animated series. She copyrighted all of the characters. She'd had a toy line. Like, it was some serious business. And we were going up being like, "Oh God, we're next." But we went well. And the guy was giving everybody else bits and pieces of feedback of where they could change with their pitch and what they could do. And with us, he was like, "Guys, that was great. Leave it the way it is." And we were like, "Oh." Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it came to the actual pitch, we did what we did, and we the pitch went well. The crowd responded well, and as soon as we came off stage, we were approached by I don't want to give his name out, but yeah, the one of the producers of TVNZ, and he was all about it. He gave us his card, and we went out for dinner, and it all kind of went from there, which is pretty crazy. And as soon as he came over, we got approached by a load of different other people too. So I think that was kind of a testament as to, you know, the stuff that Tyler put together with, you know, the resources that he has. And we had all these, you know, big TV execs interested. So that was pretty cool. And then it kind of all came together from that.
Yeah. So definite unsung hero is Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should be talking to Tyler right now.
let's not get too much credit here.
Don't want him to get a
we
big
enjoy doing stuff as well.
But okay, so what's the actual content that's going on there? Is it is it some of the bigger shows, some of the fight night stuff? What is it? Is it the documentary that you'd originally hoped for?
So yeah, at the moment we've just aired a 3-part series, which was all kind of behind the scenes documentary stuff, and it was also highlights of the last stadium show that we did.
Yeah.
So that was what that was, but it was almost an advertisement for the Southern Rumble event that's happening this weekend. So we almost use it as an advertisement.
Smart.
And then, yeah. So then all of what they originally wanted was that Southern Rumble this year. So they're going to air that as a 2-hour special. I think it comes up in August, and that's where they're going to really push out and put some money behind us to see how we go. Awesome. So that's currently what we've signed on for, was that 3-part series and the stadium show. From there, we can renegotiate, and at the moment, it's sounding really positive. The numbers that we did for the 3-part series apparently are way above what they thought, which is really cool. So we're in a really good spot at the moment, and it's looking really positive. So we've got everything crossed, and we hope the stadium goes well this weekend.
That's always good to hear, that it's doing the numbers that they hoped for, let alone better than the numbers they hoped for. That's what we want to hear.
Yes.
So the big show this weekend. Let's start with the relationship with MCW. Obviously, you've come over and done things with MCW. JK Moody's come over. T-Rex came over recently. How did the relationship with MCW start? And how did you get to the point where you're like, let's do a show together on our home turf?
So me and Mikey go back a little bit. I worked for him back in, I think it was first, I worked back for him in like 2014. Mm-hmm. And we kind of stayed in touch since then. I was always a fan of what Mikey did with Melbourne over there. I kind of relate him in a similar way to Progress. Obviously, back in the day, it was a little bit smaller, and it's taken him a lot of groundwork and a lot more hard work to get to where he's at now. But I always thought he had the right values with it. He was focusing on his homegrown guys. He was putting money into the right places. He cared a lot about production. He cared a lot about
aspects, yeah.
So I always admired what he was doing over there. So we kept in touch. And then when I started SPW, I'd ask him for advice here and there on what he had done and what experiences he had had. So we'd always just had that back and forth. And because we had that same kind of mindset, it made sense that we stayed in touch, and we kind of did a bit of crossover of talent exchanges, and we kind of helped each other here and there in each other's market. It just made sense. We're good mates. We get along really well. And that always helps too.
Yeah.
And we both, I think the future of Australia and New Zealand heavily relies on focusing on our own guys. And we're both really passionate about doing that. And I think if we focus on bringing his guys over and making them stars, and him bringing our guys over and making them the stars, that's only going to be good for both of us, because we're just going to be growing each other's, stock. And I think that's kind of where we sit at the moment.
Yeah.
Especially as the wrestling landscape changes a lot.
Yeah, a lot. The 2019 has been wild for wrestling, man. But if we start talking about the landscape in general, we'll be here for another hour. Like there's a lot to break down with all the relationships and everything that are going on. And there's eyes everywhere, and there are eyes on our stuff here. So it's just crazy to think about where things are at. This big show though, Southern Rumble. You had a Southern Rumble last year that was already the biggest show in New Zealand history, right?
Yeah, it was pretty big.
1,000 plus, I think it was? Or am I underselling you?
I think we got, the final number was 1256.
Nice.
Is the final paying number.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Which is nothing to scoff at.
No.
and so are you hoping that this one's gonna do bigger numbers? What's the...
We hope so, man.
Yeah.
We really hope so. I mean, without giving anything away at the moment, it's tracking very well. So
good, right? Like when you look at the pre-sale, things are going all right.
Yeah, they're going our way right now.
That's good to hear. And you yourself, which I mean, I feel like we haven't even talked about. We've talked so much about SPW right now. We haven't even talked about your actual wrestling, but you are the heavyweight champion, and you and Slex are gonna go toe to toe. Mano a mano, belt against belt, winner takes all.
Yeah,
that's fucking huge.
It is a little bit, right? Yeah, man, it's gonna be it's gonna be massive. I know Slex is at the top of his game at the moment. He's always been. I've always watched him from afar, and I've always admired, how good he is. And I'm looking forward to getting in the ring with him. And I think me and him can put on a bit of a show. I think our styles will gel really well. And I think it's gonna be a throwdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I just think it's wild that you could potentially walk into the Thornbury Theatre with their big shiny new gold belt, or is it silver? It's a shiny new belt. Either way, you could walk into the Thornbury Theatre next time around with both of those titles, one over each shoulder. And like I saw you at the Thornbury Theatre back in October doing a funky yellow card spot.
Yeah.
That's a big way to come.
It's insane, man. And the same goes the other way. If Slex somehow manages to get one over on me, he's going to be walking into SPW, holding both belts as well.
Holding both belts,
which is
huge.
Which is pretty crazy. Yeah, so we're stoked that we, talking from an SPW perspective as well now in MCW, we're stoked that we actually have that ability to do something that big, which I don't think has been done before. We really wanted to do something special here, and I think we've nailed it. And it's going to be, there's going to be a winner. So it makes for a very interesting weekend.
Yeah, talk about the landscape changing. Like, what does that do to the Australian and New Zealand wrestling landscape, having one Australian New Zealand champion? I mean, obviously they're two different titles, but still having an Australia and New Zealand champion, that's huge.
Yeah, man. I think so. It definitely.
I think so. Yeah. I don't think it's been. I mean, I'm sure there've been titles called the Australian New Zealand champion, but whether it's actually been that, is a different thing.
Yeah, man. And I think there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment, but I think right now, you've got, Melbourne, who are, one of the top promotions in Australia, and you've got us that are, hopefully one of the top in New Zealand. And I think us both working together to put someone like this out there is going to be pretty historic, but it's definitely going to change the landscape, and it's going to put a lot of people on notice for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, before we go, I'll get you to plug your socials and stuff, but before we do that, the whole, I do want to talk about the yellow card, red card, lad Bible stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't even have it in my notes. I don't know how it skipped my mind until I thought about you walking into the Thornbury, and I was just like, oh man, the yellow card spot, I got to ask him about this. What on earth? Like, did you anticipate that reaction? Because my drunk ass sitting there in the front row was loving it.
I don't think I was anticipating that reaction. I was expecting a reaction, but no, not to the level that it got. It was pretty fun. Yeah, man, it was wild. I love that shit though. Anything that gets me out of having to do more moves and bump more, yeah, I'm all for.
Extend the bump card, baby.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it was so good. But like, I'm pretty sure I saw it pop up on ESPN. Like,
oh,
like on a random like ESPN article or whatever. Like, and they had it embedded there, and I'm just like, what is going on right now? Like, how many people saw that freaking video?
I don't know. Like it. Yeah, I was getting messages from all over. I don't know. I think it just went a bit crazy, which was awesome for me.
We talk over here about Paris De Silva being a viral sensation when his gifs of, the shooting star DDT and stuff go viral. But that goes viral just within wrestling. This went viral, like viral.
Yeah. I think it just because it crossed over with the football, obviously, fans and wrestling fans, that everyone was all over it. Yeah, it went well for me.
It was incredible. And that was all you? That's all your spot?
Yeah, well, the yellow and red cards I've done a little bit without giving it away. But yeah. It was Mikey Broderick has got to get a lot of credit for this, because I think he was behind the dive.
Right.
I think it was his idea to do the dive.
Yeah.
Whereas
so if we do a dive, then do the cards. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I've done it slightly different, in other places, but it worked so well. And I thought he was great in it. I think he played the part superbly. I thought his reactions kind of made up for it. So, yeah, full credit to Mikey Broderick. He's the man.
Yeah, and it was done in front of the right crowd too. The crowd that can appreciate, this is wrestling, like when it's not wrestling, but it is wrestling. You know what I mean? It was just a perfect moment, and I think it's a good place to end it. Where can people find you if they want to track down that perfect moment or see, you know, what's happening in the world of Marcus Kool, SPW, all that sort of stuff. Plug them now.
Thanks, man. I'm Instagram at Hooligan Marcus Kool. I'm Twitter at Marcus Kool. And check out SP Wrestling NZ at SP Wrestling NZ for Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Nah, dude. Thanks for having me, man. And I hope the kids are all right.
Thanks. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Marcus Kool was fantastic to have a chat with him. We got interrupted as we were recording that chat. Both of us were alone with our children as we were recording that chat on the phone. So we got interrupted multiple times. Hopefully I edited it out nice and cleanly so you guys don't have to hear any of that. If you do, I apologize. I will be editing it as best as I can. So you've already heard it. If it was bad, you know, whatever. If you like that interview, though, and you like Aussie Grappler interviews, it's a light one this week. Of course, on the Turnbuckle, JXT stops by fresh off his American trip, which went very well. So you can hear all about that. Obviously, you can hear all about that on the JXT podcast, Talking Stick. But you can also hear about it. With people actually asking him questions. So, you know, it might get a little deeper sometimes. You can hear about that on the Turnbuckle this week. Our good friends on the Turnbuckle chatting with JXT. Elsewhere on this very network, coming out later today, Tyson Reed is on the Newey Pro Show. So they're talking all things Newcastle Pro Wrestling and having a chat with Tyson Reed. Definitely get around that, guys. You know, Newcastle Pro Wrestling is a territory that I do not know a lot about. So it's great to have someone on the team who's going to talk about Newcastle Pro Wrestling. And it's great to have that and get that exposure out there. So I'm really looking forward to listening to that one myself right after I finish this and get all the editing done. That's the fun part of the job. But you know what else is the fun part of the job? Getting out and supporting Australian wrestling this weekend. In Victoria, PCW Slam and Ignition are on Friday and Saturday night, respectively. Some of the bigger names are appearing at Slam this week. So both of these shows take place at the Southeastern Entertainment Centre. Get around it if you are in the area. And on Saturday night, Showdown Wrestling present Aftershock at the Italian Sports Club in Werribee. That's all for Victoria, though, just a light one this week as far as I can tell. In New South Wales, AWF have a doubleheader there at HubCon in the Blue Mountains on Friday and then return to Mothership Studios in Marrickville for AWF City Slam 2019 on Saturday night. Head to their socials for more information. Over in Western Australia, EPW present Evolution this Saturday at Gate 1. Elsewhere, Western Pro Wrestling are live at the Baldivis Recreation Centre that night, and on Sunday, New Horizons Pro Wrestling Perth City Riot takes place at the Perth Mess Hall. Big weekend of wrestling in Western Australia. In Queensland, UPW Over the Top this Friday night at the Shed in Aussie World features a 20-man Over the Top Elimination Rumble. And of course, in New Zealand, SPW and MCW Southern Rumble. Huge card with Travis Banks, TK Cooper, all the MCW and SPW stars you expect, of course. And this show is headlined by Slex versus Marcus Kool, champion versus champion, title versus title, winner takes all. We will have an MCW World Heavyweight Champion and New Zealand Heavyweight Champion, one and the same, after this Saturday. Cannot wait. Get around it, guys. Get out to the shows if you're near them. Buy them on demand if you're not. Cheer the good guys. Boo the bad guys. Buy a shirt. You know what it's about. Buy a beer. Support the venue as well. Support the Aussie wrestlers. And get around it. If you want to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/theb+. You can also get custom episodes. You can get into the call-in shows, which has come out this week as well. Lots of really fun stuff waiting for you on patreon.com/theb+. If you want to find me on social media, I am at Greg Unchained on Twitter, at the Greg Unchained on Instagram. We collectively are the B+ Wrestler on Twitter because wrestling wouldn't fit. The B+ Wrestling everywhere else. Like, share, subscribe, 5-star review if you like what we do. And thank you so much for listening.